Yo boys, it's UFC 313 fight week. We have a banger of a card coming up, and that means, as usual, I am here to give you my analysis, predictions, and a couple of my bets if you're lucky for this weekend's UFC card. We have been crushing it lately on this show. I told you that Manel Kape to win via KO in round 3 last week was a good bet. Hopefully some of you cashed on that with me. I also called Cody Brundage to win via KO in round 1 in what I called a 50-50 fight. We are looking to keep the momentum absolutely going for this gigantic pay-per-view. And what better card to do it with? Alex Pereira taking on Magomed Ankalaev for the UFC light heavyweight title. Finally, we are getting the matchup that UFC hardcores have wanted for many years. We also have a banger of a rematch. Justin Gaethje coming back from that unfortunate reverse highlight reel knockout over Max Holloway, taking on a former opponent of his, Rafael Fiziev. He was the underdog in that first matchup against Fiziev, and he won that fight. He is once again the underdog in his rematch, so can he defy the odds once again? Well, I'll give you my exact analysis on that one very shortly. We have Amanda Lemos, big sis, taking on Iasmin, Lucindo, little sis. Curtis Blades is on this card. Jalin Turner's on this card. Joshua Van, Bobby Green, the Fighting Nerds own Mauricio Ruffy. I mean, this card is stacked head to toe, and you know we're gonna make some money on it. So rock out to the intro with me, and let's get into the show. All right, what's going on, boys? So this weekend we are back once again in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada for another pay-per-view. And again, another pay-per-view headlined by Alex Poatan Pereira. This guy is undoubtedly the #1 star in the UFC in 2025. He rose to prominence all the way back in his middleweight title days, defeating Israel Adesanya via 5th round KO. And since then, he's just literally shot to stardom, you know, specifically when he moved up to the light heavyweight division and captured the title there. I was lucky enough to see Alex Pereira in this very arena last year, all but 9 months ago, when he knocked out Jiri Prochazka, not once, but twice in the same fight. I was lucky enough to be almost at the front row watching that fight in Las Vegas. And I remember when he landed that knockdown at the end of the first round, me and everyone around me was confused because we thought the fight was over. We didn't hear the bell. Obviously it's loud, you know, and everyone was screaming after that knockdown, so we couldn't really hear the bell. And I thought it was a knockout. Next thing you know, the referee brings Jiri back to his feet and they start off for round 2. But it was very cool watching someone like Alex Pereira display his skill set in real time. So I'm very excited for this one, boys. You know, he's taking on Magomed Ankalaev, and it is an absolute banger of a matchup. I know at the start of the show I said people have been wanting this for years. Maybe it's not been years, maybe it's been 1 year, but honestly, I've actually been looking forward to this matchup for more than a year because I thought that Alex Pereira may move up to the light heavyweight division at some point. I mean, I knew how huge he was, and he had fought at some higher weights in kickboxing too, so I was always imagining him taking on a powerful wrestler, and Magomed Ankalaev was always the guy in my mind. So to see it actually play out is very exciting for me. Been waiting for this one for a long time, and I can't wait for it. So getting straight into the matchup, boys, we have Alex Pereira coming into this fight with a record of 12-2, which is kind of interesting because, you know, the amount of fights he's had recently, Alex Pereira seems like a 30, 40 fight veteran in MMA, but he's actually somewhat of a novice, at least in the MMA game, which is kind of crazy to say. On the other side, we got Magomed Ankalaev, who is far from a novice, you know, was doing MMA since he was a child. He is coming into this fight with a record of 20 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. And I know you boys remember that loss, a last-second tap out to Paul Craig. That was a crazy sequence that maybe I'll get into in my breakdown. And then the 1 draw, which was against Jan Blachowicz. He ended up getting a late round 10-8 in that fight to save him from defeat. Currently, they have this fight as a good old-fashioned pick'em, which means the bookies and the market cannot decide who wins this one. They're calling it a literal 50-50 fight. They have Alex Pereira at -110 and Magomed Ankalaev at -110. So first things first, boys, about the odds in this one. Alex Pereira has been a favorite for the majority of the past 7 to 14 days. I've been analyzing this line, looking at this line, as I always do. My job as a sports bettor, you know, half the time I'm looking at lines, analyzing markets. And I've been seeing Alex Pereira hover around that -125 to -110 range for the majority of the last 2 weeks, as I've said. So, you know, Ankalaev has hit plus money, hit plus 105 is the max I saw him go up to. So it says it is a pick 'em right now, but Alex has been a slight favorite. for the majority of the time. And first things first, you know, I have to say that I personally feel that the reason Alex has been a slight favorite is down to hype. You know, hype is something I speak very often about on this show. And it's something that I speak about which drives lines heavily. So it drives the betting lines. It's probably the #1 driver of betting lines, I would say, is hype. A lot of people think it's sharp money. But on an individual fight-to-fight scale, yeah, sharp money moves lines more than anything. But the strongest amount of money is when there's big hype on a fighter. Now, the thing is that this doesn't happen that often. So we don't see it that often, right? So sharp money is really what's moving these lines for the most part. But every once in a while, you get a fighter who's very hyped up and you see their lines are just drastically wrong. We saw it when Mike Tyson fought Jake Paul. You know, Jake Paul's true line was upwards of -1,000, but he was -170, -180, -200. Mauricio Ruffy is on this card. He's fighting nerds. He has a lot of hype. He's -500. Carlos Leao on this card, -750. You know, that's down to his robbery hype. You get these undefeated fighters coming in off Contender Series or, you know, Dagestanis with shiny records and they're -600, -500. This is all down to hype. And this could be a incorrect opinion, but straight off the bat, boys, without even getting into the analytics, I am a sports bettor first. I believe that a lot of this fight has come down to hype. Alex Pereira has massive hype on him these days, right? So anytime he gets into a fight, there could be hype on his line. Now, to be honest, looking back at it, there probably hasn't been that much. I mean, against Khalil Roundtree, you know, probably, you know, was a big favorite. Maybe it was accurate. He did lose the first 2 rounds there. He's always in risk of getting knocked out in that fight. It just didn't happen in that fight. But he was like -500 and not sure it was accurate, maybe around accurate, I don't know. In his fights against Jiri and stuff, they were closely lined. And so maybe there wasn't too much hype. I just feel like Ankalaev in this fight, and I'll get into technical breakdown of it now. Ankalaev has so much advantage in the wrestling. That's actually quite surprising to see Alex Pereira favored by the bookies. I know it's a pick 'em now, but for the majority of the time, he's been slightly favored. And even it being called a 50-50 fight, it's quite interesting to me because Ankalaev has been wrestling since a child. And we know Alex Pereira is not a good wrestler. He's not good at jiu-jitsu. Maybe he's good at stalling and not getting finished, but who has he really fought that could even ever finish him on the ground anyway? I mean, you can say that, you know, he's good at not getting finished on the ground, but I mean, who has he even fought that could test that? Jan Blachowicz, maybe? I mean, who has Jan finished on the ground? Not that many people. Jan's a striker. Let's not forget that. Jan is a striker. And that's probably been his biggest test on the ground. Jiri, I mean, Jiri's a striker. You know, like he's been fighting strikers throughout the entirety of his career. And it's funny because Magomed Ankalaev has now branded himself as a striker, but he came into the game wrestling. He is from the mountains of Dagestan. If you go back and watch some of his early fights, and one I'm going to reference here is Dovlet Yagshimuradov, right? He fought someone called Dovlet Yagshimuradov, and that guy is actually fighting for PFL/Bellator nowadays. Very good fighter in his own right, and I think it may have been Magomed Ankalaev's debut or his second or third fight, one of that, and you can fact check me on that, but it was definitely one of his first 3 fights, let's say. He just wrestled Dovlet from the get-go, grappled him, wrestled him. Dovlet, good striker in his own right, and he just put him through the ringer, takedown after takedown after takedown, and that was early in his career. So, you know, he used to be a wrestler, through and through, grappler, Dagestani wrestler, as they all are, or at least a lot of them are. You know, they're very diverse, but for the most part, strong wrestling. And over the years, he's turned into a very good striker, clinical striker, stays on the outside, picks his shots, and he has multiple knockouts under the UFC banner now. Johnny Walker knocked him out stiff. Dolce Lungambia kicked him in the face, knocked him out badly. Ion Cutelaba, I know there's a lot of controversy over the first fight, but rectified it and knocked him out again in the second fight. This guy has turned into a dangerous striker, but based on the wrestling advantage he has in this fight, I thought I would see him as a favorite. Let's get into the technical breakdown before I move on to another fight, boys, and give you my actual prediction on who I think is going to win the fight. Look, I think Alex Pereira is one of the best strikers in the division. He's probably the best striker, right? It's not like a wow bomb that I'm telling you this. He's the best striker in the division. His setups for the left hand are very, very good. And his power is otherworldly. He has the best left hook I've ever seen in MMA. It's not close. And the power he can generate is, again, something that I have yet to see in MMA. He's very close to Anthony Rumble Johnson in the way they can generate power. But Poatan does it in a way where he doesn't look like he's even generating that much power. I mean, Anthony Johnson, yeah, I can remember a couple of shots off the top of my head where he didn't really put his all into it and still slumped guys. But a lot of Anthony's shots, they're big, huge shots over the top. Like, they look like powerful. And rest in peace to Rumble Johnson, a legend of the sport. Gave DC all he can handle once upon a time. But Poatan literally throws his left hand like he's not putting any power into it. And guys are just dead on the floor, unconscious for multiple minutes. He has something special in his bones. He has some special bone density, some special ability to create torque and horsepower throughout his core and to land that left hook. And obviously he has some other shots that are very powerful as well, but it's really that left hand, not even the left hand, specifically the left hook, that just gets his opponents time and time again. It is such a powerful shot that sometimes he will just spam it because he knows if he hits it once, you're knocked out. So sometimes he doesn't even set it up that well because he's so eager to spam it. Something else that is very special about him is his leg kicks. He has torn apart multiple people's legs. Jan Blachowicz, Jiri Prochazka, Israel Adesanya. And I heard an interview with Israel. I think he did a show or he did a video on his YouTube channel with Robert Whittaker, and he was speaking about how Alex Pereira's leg kicks are something that he's never felt before. You know, he was saying, you know, some people just hit differently. Like if you guys have trained before, you know, some people just naturally hit hard. They're just a little bit different, like something's a little bit different about them. And Israel was basically saying that he felt like that with Alex's legs, right? If Alex hits you with a leg kick, your leg just goes dead randomly when you could take 20 leg kicks off somebody else and be fine. And you see that in the octagon, you know. So his calf kicks and his left hook are really the difference maker in almost all of his fights. Very good pressure. And this fight is really going to come down to how Ankalaev approaches the fight. Ankalaev has very bad fight IQ, right? And I think that we could see him abandon wrestling here early. He said on Twitter not too long ago, I'm going to strike with him. If he does that, he's probably going to get knocked out here. One thing I will say about the striking is that while I think Alex Pereira is a much better striker and he could almost dominate Ankalaev on the feet in the striking if it come to a pure kickboxing match, I do think that in an MMA fight, since Alex will be worried about the takedown inherently, I think the striking can even out a little bit more than maybe some people are expecting. I also believe that if Ankalaev fakes a couple of takedowns, then the striking evens out even more. If he gets a takedown or two but doesn't finish him, the striking could even become 50-50. As we saw in the Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira fight. If you go back and watch that fight, Jan took him down in round 1, dominated him completely. Alex was tired from that and he was worried about a takedown in round 2 and round 3. And the striking turned to basically 50-50 after that, even though Pereira is a much better striker than Jan. Another thing that's very interesting about this fight is that while I think Ankalaev's striking style will help him in this fight against Ankalaev, I simultaneously think that it will hurt him. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that because it's a paradox, right? So to beat Alex Pereira in a striking match, you need to be explosive and hit hard, like Jiri Prochazka and Khalil Roundtree. Now, while they both got knocked out by Alex Pereira, they gave themselves the best chance, right? They gave themselves a good chance to win the fight. You know, they was cracking Alex, wobbled Alex, both of them wobbled Alex. They ultimately got knocked out because they're just worse strikers, but they gave themselves a chance. But to give themselves a chance, they put themselves in danger. They put themselves in harm's way. Ankalaev doesn't have that style. What Ankalaev will do is happily go into this low-paced outside range kickboxing affair, and this is where the technical breakdown comes into it. Ankalaev will, you know, oblige Alex in the fight that he wants, which is a low-pace outside technical kickboxing affair. So on the one hand, and this is where the paradox comes into play, on the one hand, that's bad because Ankalaev's not going to give himself much chance to hurt Alex Pereira or finish him on the feet because of his style is the outside kickboxing range, tit for tat, low pace style affair, right? But on the other hand, he's not going to put himself in danger like Jiri and Khalil did, which ultimately was their downfall, even though it helped them win some minutes and some moments. Ankalaev's not going to do that. He's likely not going to put himself in danger. So he may be able to survive for longer and almost make it a boring fight on the feet where it's like both of them have landed, you know, only 20, 25 strikes around and they're just kicking each other's legs and they're staying out the way and it's kind of boring. I think that that is good for Ankalaev if he uses his wrestling, you know, because if it's a low kickboxing affair, not much is happening, then Ankalaev gets a takedown, instantly he wins the round, even if he doesn't finish it, right? Whereas if Ankalaev's not using his wrestling and then he's having a low kickboxing affair with Alex Pereira, he's not going to win that fight. Alex Pereira is much better at kickboxing than him. He hits probably harder than him. He has better setups. He reads the game much better. He has way higher striking IQ. Like he's eventually going to get his reads and just pick apart his leg, right? So if he doesn't wrestle, he's just going to basically get beat up on the feet for 25 minutes. You know, each round is going to get worse and worse and eventually you probably get finished, hurt, stopped, or Alex just wins an easy decision, even though rounds are kind of close, but he just edges him every round. And he's like, true line is like minus 400 because he's just going to edge it 8 out of 10 times, even if he doesn't look like he's dominating. I hope you boys are staying with me here. I'm getting super technical on how I see the fight could play out, right? But if Ankalaev does use his wrestling, then I think that his outside low-paced kickboxing game plan that he uses in every fight is a very smart one because it minimizes danger and allows him the ability to breathe, make reads, and get his wrestling going. I think if Ankalaev goes to the wrestling in this match, and the reason I keep saying if he does, because many fights he just doesn't do it. Thiago Santos, gigantic edge in the grappling, doesn't use it basically all fight. Jan Blachowicz, massive advantage in the wrestling. You know, he's been ran through by Glover Teixeira, taken down by other fighters, and what does he do? He doesn't really use his wrestling until his leg starts to explode, and then he finally uses it. When he uses it, he gets a 10-8, dominates the fight, could have finished it, but he just didn't use it until it was too late, right? And that actually got him removed from the title shot, specifically by Dana White's word. And he said, you know, he's boring, he's an idiot, I'm not going to give him the title shot. So yeah, basically, boys, like a long-winded breakdown, but I want to tell you exactly how I see the fight playing out technically and where I see the advantages for both men. So it really comes down to Ankalaev here. We know what we're getting from Alex Pereira, right? I know Alex Pereira is going to want to play the low-paced affair, walk Ankalaev down, take the center of the ring, land his leg kick, land his left hook. This is not a mystery for me. What is a mystery is exactly how Ankalaev is going to approach the game, how he's going to set up his wrestling, how often he's going to shoot, etc., etc. If he does shoot often, I think he's going to dominate, and I am going to pick Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight. I think Ankalaev's going to be smart in this one. I think he's going to use his wrestling. I think he's going to take Alex Pereira down, and I think he's going to dominate from top position, and that is what is going to ultimately get him the win. Now, if he doesn't take him down consistently, I don't think that he is out of this fight. Alex Pereira has been cracked multiple times. He's been wobbled multiple times in the UFC. He's been knocked out unconscious in the UFC by a very good counter strike, to which I think Ankalaev can replicate, you know, the exact sequence that Izzy hit Alex Pereira with, you know, when he shelled up high and came over the top. I believe that Ankalaev is good and smart enough to replicate a very similar, if not the exact technique. I have seen him play off the back foot very well against Ion Cutelaba, and I believe he can employ that as well. So I'm not counting him out on the feet. He can definitely land a killer blow here. Ultimately, I think the wrestling is going to be Ankalaev's path. I think we see a new champion here. I think Poatan has had his day. He's getting older. He's 37 years old, I believe. And I just think that Magomed Ankalaev has been destined for this belt for a long time. He's got in his own way, but I believe that he's going to achieve his destiny here, you know. There is a new time in the UFC light heavyweight division, and I believe that the belt will belong to Magomed Ankalaev when I next see you on this channel or on Twitter or on my social media after the fight. Magomed Ankalaev is my prediction in this one. So let's get into the next fight and the co-main event of the evening. We have Justin Gaethje taking on Rafael Fiziev. Now, Justin Gaethje was getting ready for a 5-round fight against none other than Dan the Hangman Hooker. Unfortunately, Dan Hooker broke his hand. Not surprising there. The guy has probably thrown more punches than I have had hot dinners. And that's saying something because I love my food, boys. But, you know, he broke his hand. Unfortunately, we're not getting that fight. But we're getting a good rematch here, you know. It's a somewhat similar fight. Striking affair. And yeah, let's get into it. Rafael Fiziev is coming into this fight with a record of 12 wins and 3 losses. And Justin Gaethje is coming into the fight with a record of 25 wins and 5 losses. Massive experience advantage for Justin Gaethje there. He has exactly double the amount of fights that Rafael Fiziev has, at least in the sport of MMA. So currently they have Rafael Fiziev as the decent sized favorite here, minus 155, with the underdog price tag on Justin Gaethje coming back at plus 135. So the first thing that sticks out to me in this one, boys, and we're kind of getting in a theme where I tell you like the first things that stick out to me and then I go into the technical breakdown. So let's do it here. The first thing that stick out to me here, boys, because I'm a sports bettor, right? I know a lot of people watching this are probably like fans of the sport and they only want to hear the technique, but I'm a sports bettor, boys. I'm trying to make money off this. So we look at odds, we look at numbers, we look at lines. And when we look at the numbers and lines, I see Rafael Fiziev is a minus 150 favorite, right? Minus 155. It's actually money coming on him. He was a lot shorter than that yesterday. But the issue now I see is like Rafael Fiziev was a massive favorite when this fight was first booked, like minus 250, right? And now he's minus 150. So what's changed? It's not like Fiziev has got any worse, but he did lose the fight. So the market has seen this fight play out. They realized that Fiziev shouldn't have been minus 250. And so now the line has dropped down. But one thing I always say to you guys is that we cannot judge a fight off one iteration, meaning that Just because Justin Gaethje won the last fight doesn't mean he's going to win this fight. Just because he looked, maybe minus 110 or whatever you want to cap it, like the fight looked fairly close. I'd say Fiziev slight favorite. Doesn't mean that that was actually the true line. This fight could be completely different this weekend and completely different next weekend. So we just always have to keep that in mind with the market and overcorrections and stuff like that. When we look at the over and under, it's interesting because the under 2.5 rounds is at plus money here. And it was big minus money last time. So the market is almost completely shifted, right? But did they shift correctly? So we'll get into it. First things first, man. Justin Gaethje is coming off a bad knockout in his last fight, right? I bet on Max Holloway to win in that fight. I bet on Max Holloway to win inside the distance in that fight. Absolutely crazy lines. And obviously, it was a plus 180 on Max Holloway money line, which was the gift of the century if you actually think back to it. Made a lot of money on that one, but obviously I was happy to cash that. But what was more crazy was cashing the round 5 prop. I think I did a video right after he cashed it. I was watching a fight with my mate Danny. My mate Danny is actually fighting on Cage Warriors next week. So shout out to Danny Hartwell. You guys go and search him up, support him. We'll probably get odds on him. We'll definitely be betting on him. But yeah, me and him watched that fight, and I think there's still a video on my Instagram right now. So we'll try and chuck that up. If I've still got it on my Instagram, because we was in hysterics when that happened, because I had bet on Max Holloway to win inside the distance. When it happened in the last second, I mean, that was a crazy moment in the sport. That was amazing, so much fun.
Hey, what? Oh my God! Hey, that's unbelievable! Hey, money line, what? Plus 180 inside the distance. Max! Plus 600! Oh, wow! What is that, 1 second left? Oh my God! Hey, Danny, what happened, bro?
I can't believe that. Honestly, I have goosebumps in that.
Right. Oh, slumped!
That was one that I'll never forget. You always have moments in the sport, and I definitely won't forget that one, regardless of the bet. But having a bunch of money on it, yeah, I won't forget that one, man. This sport is absolutely crazy. I went from happiness because I won the plus 180 to absolute jubilation because I got the plus 600 ITD or whatever. But he is coming in off that knockout, right? That was the last fight he had. So how is he going to return after that knockout? We can't guarantee, man. We cannot guarantee. I remember when, and we may speak about him later, I don't know if I'm going to get into it, but I remember when Bobby Green got knocked out by Drew Dober. He never came back properly from that knockout, man. He had a great chin before that, was knocked out, I think it was like once by Dustin Poirier. And then when he got knocked out by Drew Dober, now the guy's just getting hurt in every fight. Some knockouts change you. And man, that knockout may have done irreversible damage to Justin Gaethje, not only in the chin, the physicality, and the durability, but maybe in the mental. Maybe in the mental. Now I feel like Justin's not going to be hesitant in this fight, but we've seen time and time again where fighters get finished or even lose and they come back a little bit hesitant in the next fight. Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis is a classic example of that. So yeah, we have to speak about these things, boys, because I could sit to you and give you a technical breakdown of this fight, and that is what I love doing, right? Because I love watching technique and striking specifically, but there's a lot more than just technique when it comes to MMA betting, man. That's why a lot of people who are fighters, professional, amateur, whatever it may be, they may not be the best analysts. And something that we have to understand in this fight is that there's heavy intangibles on both sides. So yeah, Justin Gaethje's coming back from a knockout, and that can influence this fight heavily. And that's why I mention it. But Fiziev is coming back off a long layoff. He's coming back off a bad injury himself. Okay, it wasn't a knockout, but what was it? It was his knee completely blew apart in the fight, made him lose the fight. He literally got TKO'd via his own knee injury in a fight, and now he's coming back again. ACLs, knee injuries, can again affect you moving forward. We've seen it time and time again in the UFC. Time and time again, fighters injure their knee and they don't come back the same fighter. It doesn't always happen. It's basically impossible to know. But Tatiana Suarez is a great example of this. Now, obviously, she had a lot going on. It wasn't just her knees. That was definitely a part of it. Pretty sure it was her knees anyway. It was a big reason why I bet Weili Zhang and why I told you to bet Weili Zhang on this very channel, in this very series of videos, about 3 or 4 videos ago, and I hope you cashed in on that with me. Weili Zhang at underdog odds. I bet on her because Tatiana Suarez was coming back from many injuries and she just seemed to have lost her physicality. She was getting older. The exact same thing is happening to Rafael Fiziev here, right? He's coming back off a bad injury. He's coming in off a layoff. He's 31 years old, so should be in his prime, but it's just hard to say, right? So we've got all of the intangibles out the way, right? Because there's probably a few others as well, but Those are some important things that can influence the fight, right? And I feel like this fight is close to a 50-50. It's just hard to pick for me, boys. It was similar to Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez last time out. It wasn't as volatile as that fight. I don't think it's as chaotic or crazy or stupid as that fight. But I feel a similar way about it, to where it's like, it's hard for anyone to actually predict the way this fight is going to go. I mean, I was pretty confident Fiziev was going to knock out Justin Gaethje in that last fight, and it didn't materialize. Justin Gaethje took bombs from Rafael Fiziev. He uppercutted him in round 3, and it was a brutal uppercut, and I really thought that Justin Gaethje would fall from that. He went on to win the round and basically dominate the round. You know, he obviously got a 10-8 on one judge's scorecard, and that was a horrific scorecard. I don't know what the hell that was all about, but he still came back from that killer blow very easy, right? It basically didn't even do anything to it. So sometimes very hard to judge how people's durability is gonna stand up. You know, Justin Gaethje might go in here and get hit by the same uppercut and get knocked out in round 1, especially coming off that bad knockout. I think Fiziev is gonna trouble Justin Gaethje with kicks, and even in the boxing extremely early. I mean, he finds his counters a lot better than Justin Gaethje, in my opinion. But Justin's going to need to bring a whirlwind and a hurricane to win this fight, in my opinion. Maybe he can take over on cardio, and then he's just going to win with jabs and straight shots like he did in round 3 of their last fight. But I think overall, Justin's probably going to need to make this fight an old Justin Gaethje fight, pressure, hurricane style. But the issue is that Fiziev he's probably more durable than Justin. And I just don't think Justin can bring that hurricane without getting hit clean early. And if he does, I'm kind of predicting what I predicted last time, and Rafael Fiziev to get a knockout. Now, if Justin doesn't do that and plays a more technical game plan, to which he has been fighting over the last few years, then I kind of feel like Fiziev's not going to work hard enough to where he gasses out and Justin can take over. Because I think early in this fight, no matter what happens, obviously Justin can land a finish. You know, he knocked out Edson Barbosa early, knocked out Cerrone, head kicked Poirier. Like, he can land a knockout early, of course. Anything can happen. I mean, they're striking and they both hit extremely hard. But I think that Fiziev's just a better striker. So if Justin kind of plays a technical game on the outside, he's going to get picked apart. So I feel like whatever style Justin brings, he's going to be at a disadvantage, at least early. But one style will make it so, you know, later in the fight, he could potentially take over. So I'm going to go with Rafael Fiziev here. I'm not super confident about it, but I will predict him to win the fight via KO. The exact same prediction as I gave in the first iteration of this fight. I don't think enough has changed for me to go against my original prediction. Like, it's more volatile this time around. There's more intangibles, there's more weird shit, but it's not even necessarily a negative for Fiziev, especially because Gaethje's coming in off that brutal KO. So I'll predict Fiziev to get a KO in this one. Not confident about the prediction, but I think it's going to be an exciting fight overall. Fiziev via knockout is my official prediction for the record books. Next fight is Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Jalin Turner. So Bahamondes coming into this fight with a record of 16-5, and Jalin Turner coming into this fight with a record of 14-8. And he's probably one of the best fighters in the UFC that has as many losses as 8. He's approaching double-digit losses here, but he's a very, very good fighter. So currently they have Ignacio Bahamondes as the favorite at -123, with Jalin Turner, the underdog, at +103. So first things first, it's kind of interesting to see Bahamondes as an underdog. Jalin Turner as an underdog. And that's just because, you know, he's got better wins, he's fought a much higher level of competition, and he is a powerhouse and someone who sometimes carries hype himself based on the early knockouts that he has. But I think it's a combination of kind of hype, because it's a combination, or at least recency bias, not so much hype. Because Jalin Turner obviously lost his last fight, didn't look great in that fight. And then Bahamondes, you know, is coming off a good win in his last fight where he stopped another hype machine in and of itself and got a somewhat viral, or at least hardcore viral KO at the time. So I think, you know, that's why Bahamondes is the favorite, because I feel like he shouldn't necessarily be the favorite here based on stylistics and level of competition and just what I see the market usually doing. Unfortunately, boys, I can't give you a concrete breakdown for this one. I need to do more tape study. I need to do more research on this one before I give you a confident breakdown. And every single week, boys, I give you some confident breakdowns and some non-confident breakdowns. And I always tell you my full thoughts. I could sit down and break down the fight for hours now and not mention and try to lie and say I've done study for this. I haven't done enough tape study for this to give you an accurate prediction. I'm going to give you my off the top of my head thoughts, and my official prediction and maybe any bets I have on the fight will go on my website. Will go out to my VIPs and stuff like that. Of course, it's not for this show, unfortunately. Now, I'll tell you what I do think. I know these fighters well, right? So I think Jalin Turner's gonna land on Bahamondes early. He lands on everyone he's ever fought in his entire career early, basically. I don't think it's gonna change here with Ignacio. Ignacio is kind of hittable. I mean, he does a good job of fighting at range to some degree, but I think Jalin Turner is also tall enough, big enough, and has a good enough footwork and understanding of the pace and pressure and his own skill set to definitely land on Ignacio early. Ignacio seems to have a very good chin. He's been wobbled before. You know, Magomed wobbled him with a shot that didn't look very heavy, but at the end of the day, that was his UFC debut. It was a long time ago now. I do give him some benefit of the doubt on that one. Klein landed some good shots on him as well. But yeah, I think overall, I don't really see a world, and obviously like anything can happen in a fight, but I don't see this fight play out too often where Turner doesn't land a big shot early. And that's something to think about, man, because if Turner lands a big shot early, he can most certainly finish you. I mean, he is not only good at finishing with the knockout, but he is good at finishing with his front chokes as well. Even with his rear naked choke, if he gets on top, he's very aggressive. We've seen it, even aggressive with the ground and pound. You know, we've seen him do both of those things to Joshua Kulibau and Uros Medic, respectively. We've also seen him choke out Brad Riddell after hurting him on the feet. And then we've also seen him land brutal knockouts against Bobby Green, again, pounding him from top position. So, pause. So it's going to be interesting to see if Ignacio can weather the early storm. If he does, I think he's got a good chance of hurting Jalin Turner as the fight goes on. I mean, Turner's always been a 1.5 round fighter, you know, not to say he can't win fights that go late. I mean, the Dan Hooker fight was an absolute war. You know, he stayed very tough in that fight, could have quit in that fight, and basically almost won the fight. You know, went to a split decision, very close. Arguably, he won the fight. I understand Dan Hooker, you know, they gave it to him. You know, he had great optics at the end of round 2. But at the end of the day, you know, he could have won that fight. Mateus Gamrot fight, man, he could have won that fight as well. Very, very close to winning that fight. He potentially even had an argument to win that fight. It went to split decision again. So it's not like he's completely effed in a decision, but all of his wins in the UFC have come via stoppage, right? So the guy, if he doesn't get you out of there, he's probably not going to have a clean fight. Let's put it that way. Where Ignacio Bahamondes, I trust him over 3. You know, he can win 30-27 easy and not even be puffing hard. Jalin Turner, you can't say the same about him. So yeah, very interesting one for me here. Like I said, I'm going to do more tape study. At the moment, I'm going to predict Jalin Turner. The reason is because of what I said. I think he's definitely going to win round 1. I think he's going to hurt Ignacio early. And you know, Ignacio's not really the type of guy to like push crazy pace or even any grappling, which is kind of what you need to beat Jalin Turner convincingly. So I could still see Jalin Turner winning the decision here. And I think he's more likely to hurt Bahamondes over the whole fight. I think he's more likely to knock him down. And I think he's more likely to knock him out early and knock him out in general, because most knockouts would come early, right? Most knockouts happen in round 1. Why is that? Well, it's because you have to go through round 1 before you hit round 3. So more shit is going to happen early because early happens first. So yeah, I'm going to favor Jalin Turner based on those things. But I'm going to do more tape study. And that's not my final prediction. But currently, my official prediction will be Jalin Turner to get this one done as the underdog. Next fight is Amanda Lemos taking Iasmin Lucindo. And man, I am upset about this one, boys, because if you know me, if you're an OG, and shout out if you're an OG, I've been doing breakdowns. I've been in this game for a long time, boys, right? I've been making content about MMA betting for like 6-7 years. And before Amanda Lemos was even ranked, I called her to, you know, be a top 15 fighter and actually fight for the title. She obviously did fight for the title. I felt vindicated when that happened. It was a good moment for me. You know, I like to see someone who I support, who I called to be a title challenger, actually make it there, because it's a tough run in the UFC. And then, you know, what happened is Iasmin Lucindo came into the organization. I bet on her in her debut, plus 180. And I said the same thing I said about Lemos. I said, this girl is going to be a future title challenger. Future top 15 girl, future top 5 girl, and maybe even future title challenger, right? And now they're making them fight each other. So it's like big sis Amanda Lemos versus little sis. Literally, when Lucindo came into the organization, I said this is Amanda Lemos' little sis. We might even be able to get the tweets from years ago up on the screen right now, where I said Lucindo's like Amanda's little sis, or Lucindo's the new Lemos, or, you know, Lucindo's a future star, whatever it may be. So I'm annoyed they're putting this fight together, two of my favorite fighters, but it is what it is. Iasmin Lucindo is coming to this fight with a record of 17-5, and Amanda Lemos coming to this fight with a record of 14-4-1. So boys, I'm gonna be honest, this is a fight again, like Jalin and Bahamondes, that I wanna do more tape study in this one. Because I want to look at a few specific sequences in the wrestling defense of Lemos and the wrestling offense of Lucindo before I make my full prediction. I think that's where the fight is going to come down to. I think the fight's basically going to come down to the grappling of Lucindo. If Lucindo is able to get the takedowns here, which I am predicting her to do over 15 minutes, I think she can make the fight look fairly easy. And that's because Amanda Lemos just doesn't have much in the grappling in terms of getting back to her feet and also submission defense. Like, she's shown some good stuff against Dern a little bit, but she also got completely dominated and battered by Dern in certain positions on the ground. And I think Lucindo, I'm not going to say she can do the same. I believe she can submit her. You know, Jessica Andrade has one submission win in like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And she submitted Amanda Lemos standing up. That's not good, boys. That's not good. On top of that, she got submitted by Jandiroba as soon as the fight hit the ground. Yeah, Jandiroba is a great submission fighter, but at the end of the day, man, people like Marina Rodriguez stayed safe. Other people that Verna Jandiroba fought stayed safe. And when we go back to the Michelle Waterson fight, okay, she didn't get submitted that fight. She got submission herself, but she still got controlled on the ground. So I think, you know, we've seen time and time again in her career that the grappling has been a deficiency, and Lucindo is an elite grappler. You know, when she came in against Iasmin Jauregui, she went to war with her on the feet. Everyone thought she was a striker, but if you go back and watch her regional scene fight, she's dominating girls from top position a lot of the time, and she's shown that in the UFC now. You know, I cashed on her via submission against Poliana Viana. I believe the submission price was like plus 1,200 or something crazy like that. You know, and nowadays it's sitting at like plus 400 or whatever it is, and I don't know what it is right now, but let's check that actually. Let's check what Lucindo via submission is, because I've cashed on it before, I've bet on it before, and I do think there's a world in which she gets her submission win in this fight. So the submission is currently sitting at plus 550 on Bet Online, so it's probably plus 700 on multiple books. Bet Online is a very interesting book. You know, they move their lines very quick based on even square action, so we can never trust those lines fully. They are usually pretty accurate though. So yeah, I think that Lucindo has a good chance to submit her. I think that it comes down to the grappling a lot. Lemos is a better striker, right? She's one of the best strikers in the women's MMA history, just technically, and the way she is able to deliver her strikes. Just, you know, she has an understanding of the striking game that not a lot of women have. She can land her shots more offensively than a lot of women. Marina Rodriguez is heralded as like the best striker in the division, and she got knocked out brutally by Amanda Lemos. She caught her once, capitalized on it, landed big shots against the cage, and she got finished, right? So Amanda Lemos is probably the best sniper in women's MMA history, in the entire sport. And Lucindo is in big risk of being sniped in this fight. There's a massive age disadvantage on the Lemos side, because Lucindo's 23 and Amanda Lemos is in her mid-30s. So, you know, it's a big difference there. And I have to side with Iasmin Lucindo here. She's got better fight IQ. She has more ways to win because she can compete in the striking if she stays at range, but she can win via submission and win via grappling control decision. So I'm going to side with her for that reason. I like Iasmin Lucindo in this fight. I think she breaks through. I think it's a new era in women's MMA. I think she passes the veteran lesson against who is a veteran now, Amanda Lemos. And I think she gets her win via decision or via submission. All right, boys, now I'm gonna do something extremely fun. I'm gonna give you a chance to win 1 month free to my Elite Zone on my website. This is basically just a fancy word for access to my VIP membership site. Now, on that site, I give out a bunch of content. Not only do I give out all of my official bets, but I also give out full card breakdowns, right? That's when I break down every single fight on the card, not only the fights on the main card like you've heard today, but every single fight on the card. I give you my prediction, my breakdown, my confidence level, and any bets I like for that fight. I also give out regional scene bets. So that's bets on Cage Warriors, LFA. I also give out the best parlay pieces for the weekend. Those always crush. I also give out long shot prop bets, long shot parlays, and bets that I believe hold value that maybe I haven't bet yet for whatever reason. A bunch of content on my Elite Zone, and I'm gonna give you a chance to win 1 month free right now. And don't worry, if you don't win, you can still go to my website, lucrativemmabetting.com. The link is below in the comments section, and you can sign up now. The price is extremely cheap for the amount of content and the amount of knowledge you get. What this is now is the lucrative Wheel of Fortune. If you watch this show for a long time, you know exactly what this is. Anyone who has commented on my previous videos have been automatically entered into this week's draw, and I'm gonna spin the Wheel of Fortune. Whoever's name it lands on, I'm gonna give that person 1 month free of the Lucrative MMA Elite Zone. So if you wanna be in with a chance to win, all you need to do is comment something good on this video and you'll be automatically entered into next week's draw. So I'm gonna spin the Wheel of Fortune now, boys, and see who has won this week. All right, boys, we're gonna spin it now. Let's see who it lands on. So we're spinning now. All right, there's so many names, man. Shout out to everyone who commented. Who's gonna win this week? Rob won last week and I gave him free a month. Here we go. That is it, I'm not gonna say that name, but yeah, actually I will say it. Humongous Junk, well done, my man. You won. Humongous Junk has just won 1 month of the Elite Zone. You get access to all my bets for this card. You get access to my best parlay pieces, long shot props, full card breakdowns, all of that content, not only for this card, but for the next month. And you want to be in for this month. I'll tell you why. I have a max bet next week. My current record for max bets is 90.48%. It's a 90% win rate. You probably think I'm lying because that's what you hear a lot of scammers say in sports betting. I have a 90% win rate. I actually have a 90% win rate on my max bets, right? I've won 38 times and I've only lost 4 times. I have a max bet for next week. So shout out to you, Humongous Junk, because you just got access to my VIP Elite Zone for a whole month and you get access to that max bet straight away. So yeah, that's it, boys. Congrats to you. All you need to do is DM me on Twitter or Instagram, Humongous Junk, DM me. I've got your YouTube profile now, I'll verify you. That's it, boys. Not much more to say. Hopefully we can continue the accurate breakdowns I've been giving on this show. I've done my best this week, boys. Let's see how it pans out. Good luck and I'll see you in the next show.